just a moment ago, when Zhu Zheng requested Bai Li Chongqing to discuss Zhang Yi in detail. There was a certain unease stirring in his heart. However, he quickly composed himself. He knew he must remain calm during this crucial moment. So, he meticulously went over everything that had transpired in Tianhai. This time, his recount was terrifyingly detailed. However, during the final moments of Yuan Kangyi's death, he slightly manipulated the truth. Thus, Zhu Zheng had no idea that it was Zhang Yi alone who had caused Yuan Kangyi's demise. He then shifted tactics and began to praise Zhang Yi. He expressed that Zhang Yi was truly a talent. Both his intelligence and abilities were exceptional, even when compared to the elite investigation team members. But in the next breath, his tone changed. Bai Li remarked that Zhang Yi had certain character flaws, which deeply troubled him. Zhu Zheng's brows furrowed upon hearing this. Could it be that Zhang Yi was an unpredictable person with volatile moods? Seeing his plan working, Bai Li pressed on. He claimed that Zhang Yi was incredibly selfish, lacking even the slightest sense of teamwork. Even during their struggle against the zombies, Zhang Yi was always ready to abandon his comrades if necessary. Moreover, this man was willing to use any means to achieve his goals. A man without any sense of faith or belief. At this point, even Bai Li felt a bit ashamed. Though he had purposely defamed Zhang Yi, he realized that perhaps he had gone too far. After all, it was still gossiping behind someone's back, and he feared it might damage his image in the eyes of the commander. Realizing this, he quickly added, "Of course, I can understand Zhang Yi's mindset. After all, he grew up in an extremely harsh environment, and in today's world, it's nearly impossible to find someone with firm convictions anymore." Zhu Zheng listened in silence, lost in thought, though he admired Zhang Yi's skills. If the man could not be controlled, everything would be for naught. After a moment, Zhu Zheng offered no further comment on the matter, shifting the topic instead to honor Bian Junwu. He then officially appointed Bai Li as the captain of the Black Robe Squad. The moment the words were spoken, Bai Li leapt from his chair, overwhelmed with emotion. While the title of captain and deputy might seem similar, the difference in status was like night and day. With tears welling up, Bai Li saluted Zhu Zheng with great respect. "Thank you, Commander. I swear to devote my entire being to serving you in Blizzard City." Zhu Zheng nodded, pleased with his response. He informed Bai Li that the formal appointment papers would be in his hands within a few days. Additionally, the entire Black Robe Squad was awarded a collective first-class merit, and Bian Junwu was posthumously honored with the same. His family would receive the district's top-tier supplies indefinitely. Upon hearing this, Bai Li felt immense relief. Both matters that had weighed on his mind were now half resolved. And for the first time in a while, his heart felt light. Leaving the meeting room, Bai Li was in high spirits. Though he had just lied to Zhu Zheng, concealing certain details about Zhang Yi, the result was that everyone involved was satisfied. To him, this was the best possible outcome. But just as Bai Li basked in his success, a cold voice echoed from not far away. "Deputy Captain Bai Li." "No, I suppose I should now call you Captain Bai Li." The voice belonged to Li Linshui, Blizzard City's chief professor, known throughout the district as a mad scientist. Many of the artist's data and weaponry came from her hands. She had come because she had heard that Bai Li was in possession of something she wished to study. Upon seeing her, Bai Li quickly pulled out a small green vial from his pocket, containing the roots of the holy tree from the snow sect. Li Linshui took it and examined it carefully. She had already read reports on its capabilities, and she was deeply curious. How could such a small plant create a virus capable of turning people into zombies? But as the district's chief professor, she did not underestimate its potential. She knew full well that, in these times, anything was possible. However, her calm reaction left Bai Li confused. This object had nearly wiped out all life in Tianhai, yet she held it with such indifference. But then, he understood. Professor Li had worked with far stranger things before. After putting the vial away, Li Linshui turned to leave without so much as a word to Bai Li. It wasn't arrogance. She simply had no interest in anything outside her research. Meanwhile, Zhu Zheng, after returning to his quarters, fell into deep contemplation. The crisis in Tianhai had been a stark warning, and the death of Bian Junwu left him deeply unsettled. At this rate, even if Blizzard City continued to produce talent, they wouldn't be able to sustain such losses. So, he had a bold idea: to seek the aid of a certain place. Only by doing so could he secure the long-term stability of the southern district. He immediately informed his secretary, Lan Xincheng, to issue a public announcement under his name. It stated that 10 days from now, Blizzard City would host the Southern District's first-ever Artists' Conference, with the goal of uniting all military forces in the district. And he emphasized, Any force that dared to defy his order had no right to exist. Zhang Yi had been spending most of his time observing Yang Saiyue and Bing Kuo. Luckily, after over 10 days of watching, Zhang Yi was now certain that Bing Kuo's only flaw had disappeared with Yuan Kongyi's death. Thus, he intended to share the two ice souls. At this moment, there was a knock on Zhang Yi's door. Outside were 3 women from Yangzhou Road. After inviting them in, Zhang Yi gently shared his idea. Upon hearing it, all 3 of them were taken aback. Zhang Yi then handed the 2 ice souls to them, leaving the choice in their hands. To Zhang Yi, these individuals were all important partners. He didn't want to favor one over the other, nor did he wish to make anyone feel neglected or dissatisfied. However, at that moment, Yang Xinxin calmly said, "Brother, there's no need to consider me. Give the opportunity to the other 2. Her words left the others in shock. This was a treasure that everyone in this apocalyptic world desired, yet Xinxin gave it up so easily. Then, Yang Xinxin pointed to her head and explained, "My intelligence is my greatest asset, so compared to me, it would be better for the other 2 to use the ice soul and gain abilities. That would be the best outcome." Though Lu Karen's desire for an ability was evident, upon hearing Xinxin's words, she couldn't help but ask, "Xinxin, are you sure you thought this through?" Yang Xinxin smiled gently. "Karen, don't worry too much. Right now, the 2 of you taking the ice soul will help brother the most. So go ahead and claim the power you desire." With this, the 2 women no longer hesitated. They turned their eager gazes towards the ice souls in Zhang Yi's hands. Knowing that their moment to change fate had arrived, Zhang Yi patiently explained how to use them and assured them that he would protect them during the process. After all, becoming a gifted individual was not without its risks, and Zhang Yi wasn't willing to take any chances. Once the 2 women received the ice souls, they placed them against their foreheads. The ice souls naturally fused into their minds. Zhang Yi then placed the women on the bed and sat nearby. Watching them closely, the fusion process was swift, and within minutes, both were drenched in sweat. As Lu Karen's breathing grew more rapid, the fusion neared its completion. In the next moment, Lu Karen opened her eyes in a daze. Though there were no visible changes to her body, Zhang Yi could sense that her gaze was sharper than before. With a tense expression, Zhang Yi asked, "Karen, did you succeed?" Though still weak, Lu Karen excitedly clenched her fist. "Big brother, I've awakened my ability." Then, she reached for a spoon on the table, eager to show Zhang Yi the power she had gained. Under their watchful eyes, the steel spoon bent in her hand. But this was just the beginning of her power. Through this brief display, Lu Karen began to understand her ability. Now, anything she touched would instantly have its impurities separated. It was clear that Lu Karen would become a highly skilled mechanic. Realizing this, her eyes gleamed with excitement. But Zhang Yi was even more thrilled upon learning this. He immediately thought of his prized firearms. He wanted Lu Karen to enhance all his weapons. Without hesitation, Lu Karen accepted his request. However, in her excitement, she turned to Zhang Yi and asked, "Big brother, could you give my ability a name?" Zhang Yi smiled. "This is your power. You should name it yourself." But to his surprise, Lu Karen solemnly replied, "My life was saved by you. And this ability was a gift from you as well. So the name of my power should be given by you, too." Zhang Yi realized that this was her way of expressing gratitude. After pondering for a moment, Zhang Yi suggested, "How about calling it Divine Mechanism Control?" Just then, Zhou K'er awoke as well. Yet, for some reason, Zhang Yi couldn't shake the feeling that her skin had become even fairer and more delicate than before. Zhou K'er had felt Zhang Yi's mischievous gaze on her, causing her cheeks to flush bright red. She shyly asked, "Why are you staring at me like that? Am I really that good looking?" Zhang Yi nodded involuntarily, forgetting for a moment that there were 2 other girls in the room. When he finally realized, he was overwhelmed with embarrassment, while the 2 girls by his side shot him disapproving glances. What they were thinking at that moment, only they knew. To break the awkward silence, Zhou K'er turned to Lu Karen and asked, "Karen, have you successfully awakened your ability?" She was too embarrassed to continue being affectionate in front of the other 2. Lu Karen, with her usual honesty, explained her ability and then asked, "K'er, what about your ability?" Hearing this, Zhou K'er became excited, as her ability was related to medical techniques. What made it truly special was her ability to control cell activity and rapidly regenerate them. Not only could she use this ability on others, but she could also apply it to herself. In fact, if she wanted, Zhou K'er could sculpt her body to perfection. Upon hearing this, Lu Karen immediately understood. No wonder K'er looked so much more beautiful. She had given herself a beauty treatment. Zhou K'er went on to explain that she had another skill. Her hands could now replace surgical tools, allowing her to fix even the most severe fractures, no matter how shattered they were. With that, Kr walked over to Shinshin, who looked confused, unsure of what was about to happen. But in the next moment, something shocking occurred. Kr intended to use her ability to heal Yang Shinshin's legs. Yang Shinshin wanted to say something, but Kr didn't give her the chance. In an instant, K's hand sank into Shinshin's body. Faced with this unexpected scene, Shinshin could feel something writhing inside her. But thankfully, it wasn't painful, and she began to relax. Before long, Kr withdrew her hand from Shinshin's body. In her palm, it looked like she was holding something, leaving Shinshin and everyone else in the room baffled. They all wanted to know what Kr had pulled from Shinshin's body. Kr slowly opened her hand and explained, "I've removed all the harmful cells from Shinshin's body. This is a synthesis of those cells." Turning to Shinshin, Kr said, "Shinshin, try walking now, see if you can stand on your own." Shinshin's pupils contracted as K's words sank in. Being able to stand was something she had long dreamed of. But at that moment, she lacked the courage to try. Years of suffering had extinguished her hope, and she was afraid to believe it could be true. Seeing her hesitation, Karen hurried over to Shinshin's side, gently encouraging her. "Kr is a gifted individual now, so you really do have a chance to walk again. Come on, try standing, I'll hold on to you, so there's nothing to fear." Finally, Shinshin mustered the courage and shakily stood up. Her years of paralysis had made her forget how to move her legs. But in the next second, a mysterious force surged through her legs. She let out a loud cry of astonishment, completely losing the calm and intelligent demeanor she once had. The reason her legs suddenly regained sensation was that Kr had reactivated all of Shinshin's cells and muscles. Without that, even with her legs healed, they wouldn't have been able to support her body. As Karen let go of her, Zhang Yi exclaimed, "This is nothing short of a medical miracle." At that moment, he felt like there was nothing in the world that Kr couldn't heal. Shinshin's eyes were filled with tears as she rushed forward, throwing herself into Zhang Yi's arms. Brother, I can walk again. I'm finally a normal girl." This left Kr feeling incredibly awkward, while Zhang Yi couldn't help but find the situation amusing. Yang Shinshin, on the other hand, seemed quite pleased with herself, clutching onto Zhang Yi even tighter. Moments ago, after Yang Shinshin's legs were miraculously healed, she was so overjoyed that she threw herself into Zhang Yi's arms. Her excitement only grew, and soon she pushed him away, dashing out the door to share the good news with everyone. The others exchanged smiles, genuinely happy for Shinshin, especially Kr, whose heart was filled with satisfaction. Shinshin ran up and down the corridors, even paying several visits to Shu Chunlei, someone she usually despised. The joy spread among the group, leaving them marveling at the benefits of these newfound abilities. Watching the scene unfold, Zhang Yi couldn't help but feel pleased. Since humanity had started unlocking supernatural abilities, everything had become easier. To Zhang Yi, this was evolution in action. The harsh winter of the apocalypse had wiped out most of humanity. But those who survived were the seeds of a stronger, more powerful race. Once everyone had awakened their abilities, a superior species would emerge. Zhang Yi had considered this long ago. But seeing Kr and Karen awaken their powers had given him an even deeper understanding. In Zhang Yi's view, K's unwavering dedication to being a doctor had shaped her healing abilities, while Karen's obsession with mechanics had led to her mechanical powers. If his theory was correct, the strength of one's abilities could very well be tied to the desires rooted deep within their hearts. Both girls agreed with his perspective, since their abilities aligned perfectly with their obsessions. Looking back at Uncle Yu's awakening, it seemed to support this theory as well. In the moment he was shot, Uncle Yu had wished for a strong, invincible body that could withstand bullets, and his ability had manifested accordingly. Similarly, Liang Yu, a martial artist, had always yearned for greater speed and strength, and his abilities reflected that desire. However, Karen was left puzzled. Why, then, had Zhang Yi awakened a spatial ability? Was it because, as a warehouse manager, he wanted to store things? Zhang Yi fell into deep thought upon hearing this. His power had only appeared after his death and rebirth, so as the memories of his past life resurfaced, he couldn't help but wonder, could his rebirth itself be a kind of ability? Instinctively, Zhang Yi rubbed his right eye, choosing to keep this secret buried in his heart. He quickly changed the subject, calling Karen over, saying he wanted to test the limits of her power. Karen looked confused. Could this ability really be tested? Zhang Yi simply chuckled, then opened a small pocket of space in front of her. In the next second, a bronze-colored bullet appeared in his hand. It was none other than the origin bullet that Zhang Yi had secretly kept. He wanted Karen to see if her ability could replicate it. As soon as Karen held the bullet, She immediately sensed that it was no ordinary projectile. Activating her ability, she instantly grasped the bullet's composition, down to its precise material ratios. What shocked her most was that the bullet contained over a dozen rare metals. She quickly reported the findings to Zhang Yi, explaining that the materials required were incredibly rare, and if measured in terms of money, each bullet would cost over 100,000. But Zhang Yi only cared about one thing. Could it be replicated? Lu Karen smirked confidently. As long as you provide me with the materials, I'll have it done in no time. Zhang Yi was thrilled with her response, immediately asking her to prepare a list of what she needed. He planned to delegate the task of gathering the materials to Xingtian and his group. After all, they were always trying to curry favor with Zhang Yi, so they would eagerly hunt down the supplies. Tianhai City, with its million-strong population, had plenty of large labs, and their stockpiles would certainly be enough to produce the first batch of origin bullets. Zhang Yi's ultimate goal in doing all this was to protect the fragile peace they had achieved. He knew this calm would not last forever. A few days earlier, after gathering the necessary materials, Lu Karen had delivered the first batch of replicated origin bullets without disappointment. Upon learning this, Zhang Yi immediately rushed to Lu Karen's side. However, when he saw the replicated bullets, he was filled with questions. The replicated origin bullets looked different from the ones Zhang Yi had seen before. Even the color was off. The box was filled with countless silver bullets. Seeing Zhang Yi's puzzled look, Lu Karen proudly announced, "Brother, I added some metallic toxins to the bullets, which is why they look different from the originals." Zhang Yi, who had been about to pick up a bullet for closer inspection, froze mid-motion. "Toxins? You even added poison? You've learned too much from me." Lu Karen giggled and explained, "I designed them in your style. Brother, after all, you like to add a bit of mystery to everything you do." Zhang Yi was left speechless. "I'll take that as a compliment." Still, the idea of having toxins in the bullets left Zhang Yi torn. Sensing his hesitation, Lu Karen quickly explained, "Brother, the toxins are inside. Touching the bullet won't harm you. The poison is only activated by high heat and contact with blood. So, you can handle them without worry. Oh, and I renamed the bullets. I call them holy silver bullets now. This way, they're distinguished from the origin bullets, so no one will suspect you of copying Jiangnan district's ammo." Zhang Yi couldn't help but want to award Lu Karen a medal. This girl was too clever. He reached out and picked up one of the holy silver bullets. But the moment it touched his hand, Zhang Yi felt a slight discomfort. Clearly, even he wasn't entirely immune to its effects. Zhang Yi suspected that if his ability wasn't spatial in nature, he might not even be able to carry the bullets by hand. As Zhang Yi continued examining the bullet, Lu Karen suddenly brought in a large box from somewhere. "Brother, come take a look. I've got a special gift for you in here." Zhang Yi eyed the box suspiciously. "You didn't put a giant saw in there, did you?" Lu Karen grinned, nodding. "Brother, you're too sharp. I can't hide anything from you." Zhang Yi's excitement surged. Ever since the apocalypse began, a saw had become one of his favorite weapons. In nearly every battle, Zhang Yi had wielded a large saw to decimate enemies. He couldn't wait to see what was inside the box. When it opened, 2 handguns and a sniper rifle lay inside. Zhang Yi was so thrilled. He wanted to hug Lu Karen and give her a kiss. He picked up the handguns, and as soon as they touched his hands, it felt like the guns became an extension of his body. There was no doubt, items made by a mechanical ability user were flawless. Lu Karen blushed shyly. "Brother, I made these especially for you. The handguns are called White Howl, and the sniper rifle is named Reggie. They're all designed to be used with the holy silver bullets. Even if someone else got their hands on one, they wouldn't be able to use it." Zhang Yi, overwhelmed with joy, approached Lu Karen. "Karen, you're truly the genius of our shelter. You've done such an incredible job. Tell me, what reward do you want? I'll grant anything you ask." Lu Karen's face flushed even more at the praise. She hesitated before finally asking, "Brother, can I build a set of battle armor?" Zhang Yi burst into laughter. Without a second thought, he agreed. To him, this was just a simple task. Little did he know, this decision would cost him dearly in the future, because he had forgotten to ask just how many materials would be needed for the armor. At that moment, Zhang Yi's phone rang again, interrupting the celebration. The message was from the Jiangnan district commander's office. Zhang Yi's heart sank. Could it be that Bai Li Chongqing had broken his promise and sold him out? Seeing Zhang Yi's pale face, Lu Karen was startled. "Brother, what's wrong?" Just a while ago, after receiving a letter from the district, Zhang Yi failed to hide his reaction. Lu Karen, noticing this, asked with concern, "Brother, what's wrong?" However, in the next second, Zhang Yi quickly shifted his tone. claiming he was just a bit annoyed. Karen, trusting him unconditionally, didn't push further. Zhang Yi then sent Karen away, walking into his room alone. It wasn't that he didn't want to share the news, but rather, he didn't want to cause unnecessary panic without knowing all the details. He chose to bear the burden quietly for now. Back in his room, the first thing he did was call Bai Li Chongqing. There was something he needed to confirm. Had Bai Li Chongqing betrayed him? And he also wanted to gather some useful intel. On the other side, Bai Li Chongqing wouldn't normally leak information. But don't forget, he and Zhang Yi had a complicated relationship. So, when Zhang Yi called to fish for details about the gathering, Bai Li would likely spill a few things. Seeing Zhang Yi's name on his phone, Bai Li's initial smile faded. He knew nothing good would come from this call. At that moment, Bai Li's son asked timidly, "Dad, are you leaving again? You just got back." Bai Li smiled and reassured him, "I'm not going anywhere this time. Just attending a meeting. Now, finish your meal, and I'll be back soon." He made sure his family knew only the basics, as he didn't want them involved. The less they knew, the better. Then, reluctantly, he answered the call. Zhang Yi wasted no time and got straight to the point. "What's with the Jiangnan district summons?" Bai Li sighed with relief. "So, it's about that." He responded by asking, "Did you receive the email from the district?" Bai Li went on to explain, "It's a decision our commander made at the last minute. His goal is to consolidate power within the district and strengthen his leadership." Zhang Yi had no interest in the politics. His main concern was whether Blizzard City planned to recruit them or create more artist squads. Bai Li was just as frustrated because he wasn't sure about that either. However, he shared his thoughts with Zhang Yi, explaining that Blizzard City couldn't afford to supply more people. Supporting an artist costs a huge amount of resources. Even if the district were wealthy, they wouldn't be able to sustain so many gifted individuals like you. Zhang Yi chuckled. "We're talking about a few thousand liters at most. Can't you even feed that many?" Bai Li sneered. "You think it's just about feeding you? If it were that simple, sure, we could handle it. But I'm talking about the special medicines for developing abilities. There's simply not enough to go around." Zhang Yi's eyes gleamed at this revelation. "So, you've actually developed such a thing? Of course, you know how large the district's territory is. Without these, how could we manage all these regions? You'd have rebelled long ago." Zhang Yi was impressed by what he heard but not envious. Such power came at the cost of freedom. However, it did ease his mind. As long as he kept his true strength hidden, this wouldn't pose much of a threat to him. After wrapping up the call, both men got what they wanted. Bai Li wanted Zhang Yi to keep his secrets, while Zhang Yi sought more intel on Blizzard City. That afternoon, Zhang Yi gathered the group at the shelter and shared the full story. Everyone was a bit shaken. How could things go sideways again so soon? We just started enjoying some peace. Seeing their reactions, Zhang Yi continued, "Though this gathering is only inviting leaders, the letter didn't specifically say we couldn't bring people along. So, I've decided to take some of you with me. This is the first artists' conference in Jiangnan district. I won't sugarcoat it. There are risks, but if we can make connections, it could be a valuable opportunity. Who's willing to come with me?" Without hesitation, the group all expressed their desire to join. Even Xu Chunlei, the most timid among them, wasn't afraid this time. He knew this was a rare chance to grow stronger. But just then, Zhou Keir stepped forward, insisting she go as well. At first, Zhang Yi didn't want to bring her. After all, she was just a doctor. And if something happened, she wouldn't be able to protect herself. However, Keir's next words changed his mind. She asked thoughtfully, "If you get injured while you're there, would you really trust any doctor other than me to treat you?" It all started when Zhang Yi heard what Keir had to say. He immediately realized the problem. Given the abilities of the artists, it was highly likely that they could uncover his secrets with just a single drop of his blood. Keir shook her head, though, and said Zhang Yi was being too optimistic. What she was truly worried about was someone obtaining his genetic material. With that, they could create a weapon specifically designed to target him. At the mention of this, everyone couldn't help but think of the origin bullet. And even Uncle Yu felt a chill down his spine. Keir's warning planted a seed of caution in everyone's minds, and it successfully convinced Zhang Yi. Thus, Keir got her wish and was added to the team heading to Blizzard City. Keir couldn't contain her excitement. Since the apocalypse began, she hadn't been out of the shelter, so this was a rare opportunity she cherished deeply. Seeing this, Karen quickly ran to Zhang Yi's side, volunteering to join the trip as well. Zhang Yi scratched his head. "Karen, stop joking around. If all of you come, how am I supposed to take care of everyone?" But before he could finish, Karen gave him an irresistible reason. "Brother, don't forget, Blizzard City has some of the most advanced weapons and equipment. Don't you want them?" Karen proudly thumped her chest. "Brother, As long as you get me access to their tech, I can help you recreate everything. Hearing this, Zhang Yi couldn't help but grab Karen in excitement. Of course you're coming. No one's staying behind, especially not you. And just like that, the team headed for Blizzard City was decided. The remaining 3 girls were left behind to guard the shelter. At this point, Yang Xinxin's role became even more crucial. She was the only one who could provide Zhang Yi with remote tech support. And once Zhang Yi left, the safety of the shelter would fall entirely on her shoulders. Before leaving, Zhang Yi briefed everyone on a few important matters. Blizzard City would be filled with all kinds of people, so their safety was the top priority. Zhang Yi then sent a brief response to the district. Received. Shortly after, the district replied with instructions. They were to gather at Nuzhong Xiaomiao Mountain Metro Station on April 7 at 2:30 p.m., where transportation would be arranged to pick them up. Zhang Yi was slightly surprised at the luxury of it all. He hadn't expected such high-level service from the district, with dedicated transportation and personnel to assist them. Clearly, Blizzard City's power was beyond his imagination. He shared the news with his companions, telling them to start packing their essentials. We'll leave in 2 days. At that moment, Yang Saiyue headed to the kitchen, planning to prepare a lavish meal for Zhang Yi before his departure. After all, it was the least she could do. Meanwhile, Zhang Yi pulled out his phone and called Xing Tian and the others. No one dared delay after receiving the message. Immediately joining the call, Zhang Yi got straight to the point. I received the summons from the Jiangnan district. I'm guessing you all did too? Everyone confirmed, saying they had received the same message. And the rendezvous point? Also Xiaomiao Mountain Metro Station. Zhang Yi fell into deep thought. What was so special about Xiaomiao Mountain? Why were they all being gathered there? Xiao Honglian chimed in. Our country's transportation network has 2 systems. One civilian, the other military. Xiaomiao Mountain used to be a restricted area, so I suspect it's part of a special military line. Zhang Yi nodded in agreement. Honglian's explanation made sense. He then kindly reminded them, don't bring too many people. Just take a few elite followers. With that, Zhang Yi hung up the call. He knew his words might sting a bit, as the 3 major bases had lost most of their people in recent battles, but the survivors were the elite, and they could still hold their ground. When Zhang Yi arrived at the Xiaomiaoshan subway station, Xiao Honglian and Xing Tian were already there waiting for them. It was clear that Zhang Yi's current strength left them with no doubts about his abilities. As soon as Xing Tian saw Zhang Yi, he enthusiastically greeted him. Given their classmate connection, Xing Tian couldn't help but show off a little in front of Xiao Honglian. However, Zhang Yi was clearly displeased when he saw them. Judging by the number of people here, it seemed like the final number of people going to the Jiangnan military district wouldn't be fewer than 10,000. Xiao Honglian awkwardly explained that he brought more people because he was scared and thought it would be safer that way. Being cautious isn't a bad thing. After all, the time's about right. Let's head out, said Zhang Yi. Just then, Xiao Honglian suddenly stopped Zhang Yi and asked him to put their vehicles into his space. This was both to show loyalty and trust towards Zhang Yi, and also because they were afraid the vehicles might get damaged by the cold if left outside. Since everyone trusts me so much, I'll help you with this little task, Zhang Yi said. They still had another problem to solve. The entrance was covered by a thick layer of snow. Xu Chunlei stepped forward, showing off his ability to clear the path by blowing the snow aside. Once they entered the subway, they realized they were early. The train wouldn't arrive for another hour. Xiao Honglian seized this time to show off in front of Zhang Yi, talking about his skills in gathering intelligence. I found out that Zhu Zheng's purpose for summoning us this time is to unify all the forces, big and small, to make future management easier when dealing with external enemies and mutated creatures. Zhang Yi understood the part about the mutated creatures. But what did they mean by external enemies? The entire world was frozen, so how could any country have the strength to mess with Wagwo? While there hadn't been any large-scale wars, there were still plenty of minor skirmishes. After all, there were always some foolish people who coveted Wagwo. No matter the circumstances, Zhang Yi hadn't expected that the stronger he became, the more problems he would have to deal with. All he really wanted was to quietly survive in this post-apocalyptic world. Luckily, he didn't have to worry about the bigger issues yet. Not long after, the military train arrived on time. As the doors opened, Zhang Yi was stunned by the girl standing in front of him. Lu Karen immediately leaned over and whispered in his ear. She's a robot. No wonder she didn't look like a real person.